Okay, let's just dive right in. It is Saturday, February 7th, 2026. And if you were anywhere near a financial news feed yesterday, which was Friday the 6th, you probably saw some numbers flashing on your screen that looked, well, they look pretty wild.
Wild is definitely one word for it. I mean, nausea-inducing might be another for a lot of people. It was a really chaotic end of the week.
Absolutely. But look, we aren't here to just read off ticker symbols or, talk about green and red candles. We want to do something a little different today.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking a specific moment in time, yesterday morning to be exact,
Yeah.
and we are crashing it right into a much bigger life philosophy.
Right. We're doing a mashup. So on one side, we have this really personal case study. It involves a seasoned investor, a guy named Anthony Evans and his nephew, John Black.
Okay.
And it all revolves around this high-stakes trade they made yesterday involving strategy, what we all used to know as MicroStrategy, and, of course, Bitcoin.
And then on the other side, we have this fascinating, almost haunting philosophical piece on what's called the velocity of decision-making.
Yeah. It's the idea that the gap, the space between deciding to do something and then actually doing it, that specific gap determines the entire trajectory of your life.
It's a powerful idea. It basically argues that speed isn't just a strategy, it's like a physics equation for your own existence.
So the mission for this deep dive is to try and understand the friction coefficient of our own lives. How do we get from that, I should really do this thought to, okay, it's done, without all that hesitation?
Exactly, because what happened yesterday with Anthony and John, it wasn't just a trade. It was a masterclass in closing that exact gap.
It really was.
But to get the mechanics of the trade, you first have to understand the mechanics of their relationship. Because this thing didn't just start yesterday. It really started 5 years ago.
So let's introduce the cast of characters here. We've got Anthony Evans, the uncle. The source material paints him as, a successful traditional investor.
Right. The steady hand. He gets equities. He understands a balance sheet. Exactly. And then you have John Black, the nephew. And I love this dynamic because it kind of flips the usual script.
It really does. This isn't a story about a nephew asking his rich uncle for, a loan to start some dropshipping business.
No, not at all. It's actually the opposite. It's this intellectual mentorship loop.
And it flows both ways, which is the fascinating part. The source is very specific on this. The relationship goes back about 5 years, specifically around cryptocurrency.
Right.
And it's important to say, John isn't described as some crypto bro chasing meme coins on Reddit. The source calls him a serious student.
And that distinction really matters.
It does, because 5 years ago, John read the Bitcoin Standard. Right? For anyone who hasn't read it, that is basically the foundational text of Bitcoin economics. It's dense, it's historical, but it is really, really persuasive.
And he didn't just skim it.
No, he absorbed it.
Yeah.
And then he brought it to Anthony. He basically said, Uncle Anthony, look, you know finance, but the rules of money are changing. You need to read this.
Wow. Think about the humility that takes from Anthony, who's probably been investing longer than John has been alive, to actually listen to that.
That's the first velocity moment right there, isn't it? The velocity of just opening your mind. He could have easily just said, sure, kid, whatever, and just blown it off.
But he didn't.
He didn't. He read the book. And that started this whole 5-year journey where John really helped Anthony move from that traditional thinking to actually grasping the Bitcoin ecosystem. John was his guide to this new world.
Which brings us to Thursday evening, February 5th, just 2 nights ago. So set the scene for us.
Okay, so the market context here is crucial. If you remember Thursday, it was bleak. Bitcoin had retraced in a major way from its cycle highs. It was down nearly 50%.
Wow.
Sitting right around that $60,000 level.
Which, depending on your perspective, is either a fire sale or it's the end of the world.
Precisely. And because Bitcoin was down, strategy stock ticker MSTR had just taken a massive, massive beating. It had fallen from that $160 range all the way down to around $130.
And MSTR, it always acts like leveraged Bitcoin. When Bitcoin sneezes, MSTR gets pneumonia.
Exactly. So there's blood in the streets. Everyone is panicking.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all this, John and Anthony are having a conversation.
What's John saying?
John is pitching a thesis. He tells Anthony he holds MSTR in his own retirement account. And his logic is simple, but it's really profound. Strategy is the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin in the world.
And their average cost basis is what, around $72,000 a coin?
Exactly. So it's $60,000 Bitcoin. On paper, they're underwater.
Right.
But John sees the stock dropping to $130 as a massive overreaction. He sees it as leveraged exposure to Bitcoin, but at a discount. He's basically saying, if you believe in the long-term thesis of the Bitcoin Standard, the book you read 5 years ago,
Right.
then this price right here is a gift.
He also brings up the political climate, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's another layer. John points out that the current administration has been signaling a much more Bitcoin-friendly posture lately. He believes the regulatory headwinds are finally turning into tailwinds. So he's stacking all these factors up, just building conviction.
So John provides the catalyst. He's the spark. But Anthony isn't going in blind. He's been watching this specific stock, what, daily for 3 years?
Yes, the homework was already done. So you have the preparation from Anthony, and you have the catalyst from John. And that brings us to Friday morning, yesterday.
And here is where it gets really interesting. It's 8:00 a.m., pre-market. Anthony is looking at his screen. He's maybe ready to buy at $130, but MSTR isn't at $130 anymore.
No, it had gapped down. Big time. It was trading at $105 per share.
$105. That is a violent drop from the 160s just a few days before.
It's a crash. And this is the moment of truth, right? This is where we have to talk about human psychology. Most people, they see a stock in free fall like that, from $160 down to $105, they freeze.
Oh, absolutely. Survival instinct kicks in. You think, something is wrong, I need to wait for the dust to settle.
But Anthony,
No hesitation.
none. Zero. He pulls the trigger. He buys shares in 3 separate accounts: his personal, his trust, and his retirement account. And then he buys spot Bitcoin directly on top of that.
And the timing.
It was surgical. I mean, within minutes, literal minutes, the stock moves to $116.
Yeah.
And then throughout the rest of the day on Friday, all this buying pressure comes in, and it climbs right back above $130.
So he basically caught the absolute bottom of that move.
Yeah.
As of this morning, Saturday, he is deeply in positive territory.
It's the trade of a lifetime. But we need to pause here, because if we just gloss over this as Anthony made a bunch of money, we miss the entire point.
Right?
We have to go back to that relationship dynamic, because Anthony didn't just take from John. He gave back too.
The mentorship loop. It is fascinating. We established John taught Anthony about Bitcoin, but Anthony taught John about the other side of the coin.
Exactly right. Anthony is the veteran. He looks at John, who's, under 30, and he sees this brilliant guy who is maybe a little too focused on the rocket ship assets.
So what does he tell him?
He mentors him on traditional equity. He encourages John to balance his portfolio. Specifically, he pushed him toward VOO, the S&P 500 ETF, and QQQ, the NASDAQ 100 ETF.
Why those two specifically?
Because they represent beta, the broad market.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony's teaching John that while Bitcoin is for alpha, for outperforming, you need VOO and QQQ for stability and for that steady compounding growth in the traditional economy.
It's such a healthy exchange. You have the younger generation saying, hey, look at this new technology, and the older generation saying, that's great, but don't forget the foundation that built the world.
And notice the respect, right? Anthony says in the source material that John sharpened his thinking. He didn't just dismiss the kid. And John didn't dismiss the, boomer advice about index funds. They both listened.
And they both acted.
They both acted.
Which brings us to the how. Anthony wrote something after the trade that I think bridges us perfectly to our second topic. He wrote, "This was not impulse, it was preparation meeting conviction."
And that sentence, that is the key that unlocks the second part of our deep dive. This whole idea of the velocity of decision-making. Because Anthony didn't spend 3 days agonizing over the buy button. He saw $105 and he clicked.
So let's bring in that second source. It talks
Yeah.
about the distance between deciding and doing.
It calls that gap the friction coefficient on your existence.
I love that phrase, friction coefficient. It sounds like it's from a physics textbook.
It is applied physics for the mind. I mean, think about it. In physics, friction is the force that resists motion, right?
Right.
In life, friction is the time between having an intention and taking an action. If you say, I should invest in VOO, but then you wait 6 months to open the account, that is incredibly high friction.
And that friction just creates heat, all this mental stress, but zero movement.
Exactly. And the source makes a really bold claim here. It says the distance between deciding and doing is the single largest predictor of whether your life will be extraordinary or ordinary. Not talent, not IQ, just speed.
Speed of implementation.
Right. The source argues that the smaller that gap, the more your internal force translates into actual external motion.
And it brings up this math around iteration speed, which that really clicked for me.
Oh, the math of success. The idea is so simple.
Yeah.
The person who acts immediately gets to make, say, 10 attempts in the same amount of time the hesitator makes one.
Right. So if I have an idea for a project and I launch it today and it fails, okay, fine, I can fix it tomorrow. But if you have the same idea and you wait 2 weeks to launch, I'm already on my third version while you're just getting started.
Exactly. You fail faster, you course correct faster, and you compound your advantages. But there's a deeper psychological point here too, which connects right back to Anthony's trade. The source says immediate action gives you immediate feedback from reality.
Reality check.
Yes. When you delay, you get to hide. You get to hide in what the source calls these comfortable delusions.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well.
We all do. You can tell yourself, oh, I would have bought MSTR at $105 if I'd been awake. Or, I could write that book if I just had the time. You know, as long as you don't act, you can remain a genius in your own head.
But the moment you act, reality just smacks you in the face.
That's what it calls the brutal, liberating honesty of action. Action forces you to see what you actually do, not what you just think you represent. Anthony didn't hide. He bought. And reality told him within 10 minutes, hey, you were right.
But wait, let's play devil's advocate for a second, because on the surface, buying a super volatile stock at 8 a.m. on a Friday while it's crashing, I mean, that sounds rash. That sounds like gambling. How is that good velocity?
That is the crucial distinction. We're not talking about impulse. We're talking about velocity. And the difference between the two is preparation.
Go deeper on that.
Well, just remember Anthony's quote, right? Preparation meeting conviction. Anthony didn't just wake up on Friday and decide to learn what MicroStrategy does.
No.
He had studied strategy for years. He knew the balance sheet. He knew the Bitcoin volatility cycles. Thanks to John's tutelage, by the way.
So the knowledge tank was already completely full.
It was overflowing. He already had the framework. If MSTR drops below price X while Bitcoin is at price Y, it is a buy. That decision was actually made months or even years ago. Friday morning was just the execution.
He collapsed the gap.
He recognized the signal, the price, at $105, and the response was immediate. The source calls this having a synchronized self.
Synchronized self. That's a powerful term. What does that mean exactly?
It's the state where the self who knows and the self who acts are the same person. See, most of us are divided, right? We have a part of us that knows we should eat healthy and another part of us that orders the pizza.
Guilty.
We have a part that knows we should diversify into VOO and another part that just keeps cash under the mattress.
Yeah.
We're fighting ourselves.
We are partitioned.
Exactly. But successful people, according to this philosophy, they act with uncommon force because they are undivided. Anthony was undivided. He saw the price. His knowledge said go, and his hand clicked the mouse. There was no debate committee meeting in his head.
And that's why the result was so immediate. He got in at $105, and reality gave him that feedback instantly.
And honestly, even if the price had gone down, he still wins in a way, because he would have gotten immediate feedback to manage his risk. But by hesitating, you get no feedback at all. You just get the anxiety of what if.
It's interesting how this circles back to the advice he gave John about VOO and QQQ.
How do you mean?
Well, investing in VOO, the S&P 500, that's also a decision about velocity in a way. It's deciding, look, I don't know which specific company will win, but I know the American economy will probably grow over time. You make that decision once, and then you just keep buying.
That is a great point. It's like automated velocity.
Exactly. You remove the daily friction of trying to pick winners. Anthony is trying to teach John that you need both. You need the active velocity for the big specific opportunities like MSTR, but you need the automated velocity of QQQ and VOO to build the foundation.
That's the mentorship coming full circle. John taught Anthony to be fast to catch the new paradigm. Yeah. Anthony taught John to be steady to survive the long game.
And both of them require you to actually act. Knowing about VOO doesn't help your retirement account. Buying it does. Knowing about the Bitcoin halving doesn't help your portfolio. Positioning for it does.
It really just comes down to that friction coefficient. We often think we need more information. Oh, if I just read one more article, if I just watch one more video. But usually we have enough information. What we lack is the courage to just close the gap.
Anthony had the info. He had the watch list. The moment the price hit his target, the gap became zero.
And look at the result. He's in positive territory. But more importantly, he reinforced his own identity as someone who acts. That's the real compounding advantage. The next time an opportunity comes up, he'll be even faster.
So what does this all mean for us, for you listening right now? I mean, we aren't all Anthony Evans. We aren't all John Black.
It means we need to audit our own gaps. Where in your life are you sitting on a decision that has already been made intellectually, but just has it been executed physically yet.
Maybe it's a financial move you've been meaning to rebalance your portfolio, or maybe it's a career change, or maybe it's just calling your nephew to ask what books he's been reading lately.
Right. Because diversity perspective, like that Anthony and John dynamic, that's the fuel.
Yeah.
But speed is the engine. You have to have both. You need the input from others and the output of your own action.
And don't underestimate the power of that cross-generational conversation. If Anthony hadn't listened to John 5 years ago about the Bitcoin standard, he wouldn't have known what MSTR even represented. He would have just seen a failing software company.
And if John hadn't listened to Anthony about VOO and QQQ, he might have blown up his account by taking on way too much risk. They saved each other. They accelerated each other.
We've covered a lot here: the trade, the mentorship, the specific tickers, and this whole philosophy of action.
It's a powerful reminder that the market and, well, life, it rewards the doers.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought from our source material that actually, it gave me chills during the research for this. It's a bit haunting, but in a good way.
I know the one you're talking about.
The source says, every moment between decision and action is a moment of self-betrayal, a small death where a possible version of you fails to be born.
That is heavy. But it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
The version of Anthony that hesitated yesterday is poorer today. The version that acted is richer. And not just in money, but in confidence.
So here is my question to you. What is one thing you know you should do that you are currently waiting to do? And what happens if you close that gap today?
Don't wait for Monday.
Exactly. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.